Some viewers may find this disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Yes, we do. Hello and welcome.
Yeah, we have sound. We have sound.
Graham, we have sound, and good evening. Let's start again, shall we? It's the Sunday night show. It's the Monday night tomorrow, the Monday night guest. In fact, we do have a guest for you, but that's not until the future. So let's not talk about that. Let's not get our inner twist about that, shall we, Graham? But look, we're here. We're good. We've got everything running now. We've got some sound. Thank you guys for putting it out there and telling us about just how awkward we are when it comes to doing these things, but we got sound. That's the main thing. Graham, what were we saying now? So we were saying, well, firstly, we just want to say yeah, well, Andrew, absolutely. I won't pronounce that out too loudly. Yay, absolutely, guys. Hi, guys. Yep, Lisa's with us. Great, guys. Honestly, thank you for again sticking around because we had 6 people in, guys, and I was really really pleased about that. So. No, that's it, isn't it? Onwards and upwards. But no, Graham, it's been a good day already, hasn't it? We've been looking forward to the show again this evening. Do you know what it was, guys? I'm going to do it for you, just for you. What the reason was this? What reason was it, Graham? It was because we had the microphones on mute. Yeah, we had the microphones on mute. It was only until I realised, after looking at the comments, after us having somewhat of a big discussion, that it was all wrong, so we had to start again. But anyway, thanks for coming back, guys. That's the main thing. Graham, I'm going to throw over to you in a moment, Graham, because you have to do a bit of an introduction for us, don't you? You know, everyone wants to hear a bit of you, Graham, don't they?
Yes, everyone's got to hear a bit of the Grem Master. Well, I've had quite an enlightening day today. Don't know if with the previous feed, if you guys actually heard what I was saying now, but basically I was on an ice cream van today and I didn't think it was going to go ahead due to the weather. Thankfully the skies cleared by the time I got over to Sandwich, and within a couple of hours of being there, the flock of sheep came from nowhere, and but quite a good day. Yeah. Seen some funny things happen today as well, but well, I won't go into it live. It's not, yeah.
Well, actually, Graham, I think that was a necessary thing. I think that was necessary, Graham, wasn't it? That was necessary. A big round of applause for you. I don't know what was going on there, guys. You see those transitions? That was a bit sloppy. Look, we're kind of jumping a few steps ahead. We've got the crowd roaring for Graham right now.
Well, I've not said anything that interesting for the crowd to go crazy. I could always take my top off and scare everyone.
Probably not, Graham. We'll keep it nice and tidy, clean for the viewers. I've got all sorts going on right now. I have all sorts going on. But you know, it's here we go.
Right,
So we're back.
Right, Graham. No sound.
No sound?
Yeah, Andrew's saying no sound on me.
Really? Ah. Speak away, Graham.
Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Oh, I don't know.
Is there any sound on you now, Graham?
Is there any sound? Can anyone hear me? Oh, it's back to normal, Lisa said.
Back to normal. Lisa, can I just ask you, because, you know, never blame your tools or anything, but are you hearing us both when you can see both of us, or are you only not hearing Grem when you see him individually? Are you able to answer that question for us, guys? Because I think there's an issue with the transitions, but if it's, yeah, it could be that.
Right. It's when you're both on your own.
Right, okay, that's cool, guys. Thank you. Well, that's all we needed to know. So we won't be on our own anymore, will we, Graham?
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
No. Anyway, thank you, Lisa. Just a quick shout out. So we've got Lisa in the chat. Thank you very much, Lisa. We have Andrew. Who else do we have? We have Graham.
Oh.
Graham's with us.
Yeah, so I've shared it, haven't I? I shared with it.
I know you have. I know he has.
I've shared with it. I mean, I shared it. No, look, we've still got a problem with the sound. Every time when I'm on, no one can hear me. My microphone is definitely on.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Graham, yeah. Well, do you know what, guys? Let me just put something to you, all right? I'm not going to blame the tools too much, but I'm going to suggest something here. So the other day I went through with one of our guys who has, as equally as me and Graham, work on the show, and we set everything up. And what we got is what we call transitions. And so you move around to different parts of the scenes. So it makes it more interesting to go over to Graham or go over to me and just kind of give it a bit more of a feel of live recording, you know, kind of something a bit more to watch, you know. But for some reason, all of a sudden tonight, since it's the first time we've actually gone live with it, after testing it was fine. But when we went live this evening, for some reason, Graham's audio is not being picked up. And obviously when you're live, you haven't got time to sort it, you know. So if we had...
I think, Ben, no, they can't hear me, obviously, but maybe you can let them know what I'm saying.
They can't hear you now, Graham?
No, I don't think they can hear me.
I think Lisa was saying she can only hear you when you're when she can't hear you when you're on your own. No, she says, Graham, you are being pictured together are fine. It's when you're on your own. So I think as far as she knows, as far as we know, I believe you're coming through okay.
No, I don't... look, why don't I just pretend that I'm unable to talk and do like stuff like this? And like, I agree, yeah, I don't agree, and I don't know, I'll do a dance or something like this, spin around on the spot.
Graham, have you got live stream up?
Live streamer?
Have you got the live stream up right now, like the folks?
Yeah.
And you can't hear yourself?
Hang on. 1, 2, 3, testing.
Lisa says she can hear you. Graham, it's panic over
Yeah,
because we've got really... Yeah, she can hear you. Everyone can hear you. I think the issue really is, as I was saying, guys, the issue here is that we seem to have an issue with the transition. So whenever I swap over to Graham on his own or myself on my own, for some reason the audio is not working. But it's not really something to worry about right now. It's something we'll talk about in the future because that's where it's needed, right? Right now is getting on with the show, and we don't want to be upsetting you guys any longer because is Emmerdale on tonight, Graham?
Emmerdale? No, it's Sunday.
Oh, it's Sunday. Oh, there you go. I don't know much, do I? But anyway, so without further ado, we need to crack on with the show because that's what's important to not just us, but yourselves. You know what I mean? Graham,
let's start with a question. Then we'll go into the...
I think we will. We'll touch on the news in just a moment. But Graham, because everybody didn't hear you, and of course you are mostly important to be heard, we need to hear you a bit more, don't we? So we need to hear about this, the ice cream van, because sadly the people didn't get it. So let's do this, Graham.
The story's boring now, but I will say it for a third time. Can everybody hear me? Right, I just bashed my knee on the table. On the desk, sorry, on the studio desk in the studio. Right, anyway, I'm ranting on. I'm just ranting on about a load of like blah, blah, blah. Basically, I was on an ice cream van today, serving the great British public, and it went quite well. Didn't think it was going to be like that because of the weather this morning, late morning, but it cleared, and by 2 o'clock I arrived in Sandwich Quarry Quay, whatever it's called, at was it 10:12, and by about 2:10-ish, the flock of sheep came from nowhere. They just came to me, looking up at me like this. Yeah.
Graham, a flock of sheep. Were they flying, were they?
They just suddenly appeared, all different sizes, shapes, ages.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lisa, I did watch the Leeds game. 70 to 80 minutes of it. I got very upset with it, and I couldn't believe just how bad we were. Less is said about Leeds this evening, the better. But yeah, I did watch it. But Lisa, I take it you watched it. What did you think? I mean, it was nice to see football again. I mean, I have to say, it wasn't the best game I've seen since the start of or the end of the lockdown, as far as football is concerned. Not a good day. We could have gone 3 points clear tonight, but we decided to go 3 points behind. Does that make sense? No, we wouldn't.
But it's still free, still the number 3. So
yeah, yeah. Well, you know,
was today's match for them to move forward?
Say again, Glenn.
Was they meant to be moving forward to the next? You was mentioning it in one of your Facebook posts, mate, that you was hoping that they would. I don't know football, do I? So
I was probably moaning again, Graham. No, I was moaning, guys. When Lisa, I was moaning about football because, yeah, I mean, they've had 3 months break, haven't they? They've gone back out there and they looked like they didn't care. That's my honest opinion. They just didn't have the togetherness that they would normally have, and it's a bit worrying, really, because there's a lot riding on this opportunity of us potentially becoming promoted, Graham. The Premier League is right round the corner, and we made tonight, or this evening, or this afternoon, you could say, game somewhat difficult beyond belief. So no, I just hope that we sort ourselves out. We can't. And what worries me is if we do, my honest opinion about any football team as well is playing like we play today, going up to the big league, as it said, the Premier League.
Yeah,
it's not a good picture. It would absolutely destroy us, in the top league, playing the football that we play today. We were just not clinical. And the point is, Leeds United, Graham, we had this issue. I mean, yeah, you would look at the table and you'd say, blimey, Leeds are doing well. When you look at the table, right? So on paper, you could say, fantastic. But they do really do everything difficult, in the sense that, every football team has a bit of bad luck. Do you know what I mean, Graham? But, but there are times where, you've got to put away your chances. You've got to finish. And they just didn't seem to have that in them tonight. It was just abysmal. And then,
it could be a combination of things. It's Father's Day, after all.
Well, maybe.
Most of them got children, probably with probably more than one set of children.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe. But Graham, you just don't expect your forward, your striker, to be on the goal line defending against your attack. Your own attack. He blocked the ball. I mean, anyway, we don't need to go into it, guys. It's just really frustrating. On paper, Cardiff didn't deserve Cardiff City. They didn't.
Oh dear. So the majority of the team's going to get a ticking off then.
Well, they need to. I mean, I'm all for respecting people and all that, Graham. But and I know it's only a game to most. But at the end of the day, when there's a lot riding on the opportunities that they have, and bearing in mind, Cardiff, they didn't really play good football, Graham. They knew that they were going to be up for a challenge, and Cardiff they accepted the pressure. I mean, the fact is, Leeds were completely dominant in all areas of the pitch. However, they just couldn't put the ball in the net, and that's the same problem with Leeds throughout much of the season. They just seem to have a difficulty in scoring goals, and eventually it's going to come back and bite you, and it does. And then they have a couple of opportunities. The first opportunity they had, Graham, we gave the ball away in a really awkward position, and they scored from it. And then the second goal, I mean, the goalkeeper should have got a hand to it, and he.
Why do you think that's happening then? Maybe, have you thought about this? Maybe it's because the team that they're playing are very similar to their style of playing. So therefore, they're not. Neither side's really going to get much hope, are they?
The thing is,
they're playing with the same concept in mind.
the thing is, you look at Premier League clubs, Graham. You know, we're talking a lot about football here, and it's not part of the agenda of tonight. But I mean, just talking about football, and Lisa, thanks for bringing it up. But you know, the thing is with football is that the first thing is to keep it simple. Keep it simple. Now, the ball we gave away for Cardiff to score their first goal was a back heel, and it was to nobody. There was nobody there, and they back-heeled it across to their attacker, who was able then to run straight through and score. It was something that you'd only expect to see in a Sunday league match. So it was unacceptable behaviour from somebody who was seen to be a professional. And don't get me wrong, we're all human, we all make mistakes, but back-heeling the ball when you don't even know there's someone behind you, assuming he did think there was somebody behind you, but clearly there wasn't, is a risky thing to do when it's in your own half. And then to sum it all up, the passes. I mean, Leeds, when they're on their game, Graham, they are absolutely brutal with passes. But today, they couldn't put a pass together. It was sloppy, it was long, everything was just overhit. I mean, the one opportunity that they would have actually have scored, if it wasn't for our footballer, our attacker, who actually dived in the front of it and stopped it from going in. I mean, the goalkeeper was beaten.
Oh, my God.
I know, honestly, Graham.
Why? I mean, but it's obvious that would be the wrong move, so why do it?
Yeah, I know. And I understand that, Patrick Bamford's a really nice guy. I've met him, and I was fortunate to be able to say that. I've met him. He's a really nice guy. But football-wise, you just kind of want to just shake him in the nicest possible way, because he's standing offside, for one. The ball comes into the box. It's driven towards the goal. It's going in the bottom left corner. The goalkeeper's not, if anything, Bamford's in the way of the goalkeeper. So in a sense, he's blocked the goalkeeper's vision. So technically, and you could see with the velocity of the ball and the way it was going in the back of the net. But Bamford put his leg out, stopped it, and then tried to backheel it into the back of the net. The goalkeeper must have thought he must have thought he won the lottery. He was kind of like, how has this happened? Oh, I got away with this one, because the goalkeeper was beaten. But then the referee Graham, called it offside because he was standing in an offside position. But technically, if he'd have stood back and let the ball go, it would have gone in the back of the net. It would have stood as a goal because he would have been seen or deemed to have not interfered with play. And so it would have been 1-1. I think, if anything, even though I think Leeds on paper, not just on paper before the game, but even after the game, after you saw the match facts, Graham, you could say, yeah, Leeds deserve to win it. But again, you don't deserve to win anything if you can't score goals. So on paper, we looked as if we could have dominated that game 3-4-0. If it wasn't for our bad passing and our bad decision-making, we'd have walked away smiling. But this is the thing, though, Graham. It's a trait that Leeds have got. And I think, as a Leeds fan, when we've gone through a lockdown, I kind of hoped and thought, well, do you know what? They'll come back. Hopefully they'll be fit because they've been training. They haven't been playing. Anybody that's injured will come back or not be so severe. They'll go out into the game and they'll be fired up, ready to go, and just gunning for a win. But what I saw today was they looked tired. They looked out of sorts. It's almost like none of them had spoken to each other for 3 months, and they didn't know who each other were. It was like 11 men running around the pitch, didn't know what planet they're on. And as a Leeds fan, I'm passionate because I do believe that they are a good side. When they play their game, Graham, and to the folks, when they play their game, they are absolutely on the ball. They are fantastic, and teams struggle against us, but we just can't seem to score. We play now. This is going to sound really biased, but if you look at Leeds and look at Manchester City, the way we play, very similar, middle of the park. But we don't have the attacking force. We don't have the clinical finish that the likes of City have. If we had that force up front, that we knew that the moment we get a forward on the ball and we got about a 50% chance of scoring, because that's not what we've got in most cases, then actually you could say, do you know what? We could win games well, but we seem to do well in games in a sense, but we drop off. We get deflated as a team. We sort of, we put the pressure on. We look like we're going to score. We don't score. Sit back because we're tired, and then they come and hit us on the counter-attack. They win the game. And then you think, hang on a minute.
Something else happened today as well, didn't it, with the match?
Yeah.
Political.
Yeah. Well, Graham, we, again...
Not good. I mean, I caught, obviously something come up on Facebook, and I thought to myself, this really is just getting ridiculous now.
Yeah.
And I've honestly, I just don't know how much more I can take before I start to scream from the rooftops. It's ridiculous. It really is.
Graham, they're talking to 12 weeks of this. 12 weeks of taking a knee and wearing shirts that reference Black Lives Matter. And of course, you know, it's a shame. It's a shame because it is influencing sport. You know, politics is politics, and you, whether you like it or dislike it, it shouldn't be involved in sport. You know, in any sport, in that matter. And it's, well, people might think I'm strange for referring the Black Lives Matter as politics, but in fact, it is because, and simply because, and only because, Graham, isn't it? That you know, you've got people that are that are pushing the agenda that are of a political leaning side. So on the left, you know, they are not really pushing. I mean, the thing is, the reason why I say this, it's obscene because they say Black Lives Matter, but like I say, problem being is they don't agree with all lives matter. But for somebody who's not considered to be of the racial sort, would actually say all lives matter is a very genuine, adult, mature approach. Because, well, all lives do matter, right? As far as anybody would, I think, see it. But you say that to these people and they say, no, white supremacy, Black Lives Matter. Well, what's that mean? Because I don't think they really understand.
I know, I agree with you, mate. I mean, I won't go into to disclose names here, but
yeah.
I've received communication from somebody and just trying to put me in the right ball court with regards to what's happening at the moment with these protests. And my reply was, can't remember it word from word, but I'll try and get it correct, was, I am not going to apologise for myself being white. I just went on a rant. Just total, and I'm not going to feel sorry and upset and that people are causing just me alone, me as an individual, making me feel so angry. And it's like, and I don't like the feeling. I don't like this feeling that I've got at the moment. I just don't. It's just truly frustrating. It honestly is. But why should we have to be used as ammunition, right, for mistakes that our forefathers made generations ago? I mean, more than just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, literally generations ago.
Yeah.
We weren't around at that point. And the UK, the United Kingdom, Great Britain were the first country, alongside Norway, I believe, Netherlands, that actually halted slavery. And then you have the process, don't you, of not rectifying, because you can't rectify something like that. It's happened. It has now become history. So then you have to wind down from it and put in necessary legislation into place, and some of these slave traders will make their own business to pile money back into communities, etc., etc., etc. So they done the best they could that was acceptable for the people of that time.
Absolutely.
Right, and the thing is, we are in 2020.
Yeah, I agree. Graham, you're absolutely right. You know, and you know, as like most would say, you know, we should not be, we shouldn't be questioning the history that has brought us to where we are today. You know, whether it be good history or bad history.
Exactly. There's negative history and positive history, isn't there, in every nation?
It defines
it happens. Yeah, exactly, and it defines the country as what it is.
Yes.
It's the foundations of a country. I mean, what this Black Lives Matters movement wishes to do, I can see, this is what I feel, my personal opinion, it's like they want to dig up our foundations and slap a whole new load down Well,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, no. And the thing is, there is what you call out there a silent majority. And go ahead and start attacking Winston Churchill and all that, and you just see what happens. And the last thing I want to hear, because I will just switch off from it.
Yeah.
Is far right this and far right that. No, it's normal folk that have not been basically brainwashed. Why can't people just get along?
Sadly, Graham, you're right. But there seems to be this need to change things. There seems to be a need nowadays to change everything that was once before, because I don't know, they feel like they need to be part of history. They need to make history, by doing these radical things. And it's like, well, why? The fact is,
if you weigh up the pros and cons to slavery was wrong. It was wrong.
But slavery,
everyone knows that.
Absolutely.
Everyone knows that.
But slavery happened on both sides, Graham.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know it did.
It happened on the black community as it did the white community, and this is something that people need to realise is that
And there's some information, isn't there, that I haven't got it to hand, and I haven't spoke to Ben about this before this evening.
On the cuff,
on the cuff. It's basically I'll have to find out the information and hopefully bring it up to tomorrow's show.
Yeah.
If not later on. The amount of the percentage of slavery throughout the world, and you would be pretty shocked because the majority is white people. But am I like throwing that out there and going on marches and saying, well, yeah, okay, there's like a few million here, but what about this? This is tenfold. Yeah. I'm not doing that, because at the end of the day, we're all human beings. Colour does not matter.
No,
not at all. We just get along with people. If you respect people, you will get respect back.
But Graham, the issue really stems from this. They talk of, they've said white supremacy, but we're talking about hundreds of years ago. This isn't.
I know, it's ridiculous, mate.
It doesn't exist anymore, Graham.
I mean, something come to my mind today whilst I was pulling the lever of the whipping machine, and I was thinking to myself, surely slaves were used to create Stonehenge in a way, but no one will know because it was like so many years way before.
Don't know.
So would they take something like Stonehenge down? Do you know what I mean? It's just a point. Would they decide to do that?
Wasn't it a natural occurrence though, Graham? Stonehenge?
No.
Oh. Somebody put it there.
It's not natural.
I wonder why they've done that. I mean, how many men would you need to have that on your shoulder? Those massive logs or bricks, sorry. I mean, carrying those bricks, you'd need about 10 men.
Probably, they were probably like dragged along on
horse and cart.
Well, no, not horse and cart. Well, like they used to do in the Stone Age, they reckon that they used to like transport like heavy loads of not concrete, like stone and stuff. No, they used to like put it on like
that's
like
where
logs.
That came from, by the way.
Logs, and they would work it through on logs, that sort of thing. Like a rolling device.
Okay, interesting.
But it wasn't. I mean, you've also got the pyramids anyway. So I mean, more realistically here, because no one really knows what happens with Stonehenge.
So hang on a minute. So Graham, what you're telling me is George, got his logging machine, pulled over the stone, right, put it in place, turned to Frank and said, "Frank, now what? We're going home, lad. What was the purpose by it? So they put these positions, the rocks in place. Nobody cared probably back then. We kind of now think, oh, that's amazing. How did that happen? Back then, there must have been a reason for it. Was it, does anybody know what the reason was for Stonehenge?
It's a religious reason. It's probably more. I really don't know the answer. I would have known it back at school, but I'm getting old now.
Did you get my point?
I think Lisa Terry has brought this up in the past, actually. Not on the show.
Yeah, Andrew says it was estimated that over 1,000 slaves were used to build Stonehenge. Well, there you go, Grem. So,
well, there you go. Right, there you go. Right, okay. So I demand that they pull that down straight away. But do you think they will? No. Because they're saying, oh no, that was too many years ago.
I wouldn't want to see a lefty hanging off that stone. Have you seen how heavy it is? Health and safety, Grem.
Look. Let's move on. Because
anyway, we don't. It's not about lefties. It's not about righties. Forget it. Forget about that, Grem, because we don't want to upset anyone.
Not upset anyone. The silent majority are already upset.
They are. Well, that's it, Grem. And you said something about silent majority. And let's face it, when it comes around to voting, only crazy people like me and Grem, I mean, not so much you, Grem, but I'll speak for myself, of course. Only people like me and others, I'm sure, like me, will say things on social media, but nobody bats an eyelid anyway. I don't blame them because, I mean, after all, you get people like me moaning away and people have got better things to want to watch and listen to. So but you will get the silent majority that will go out to the polling stations and they will vote and they will do it quietly and they will vote the right people in, and that's democracy, and that's why we've got to praise that system that we do have. We see these things going on in London. We see them recently again, the BLM marches, and you can't ask yourself, well, have they not already put their point across? They've got to do it again. Well, what's the necessary need? They made their point, but they're still going out there, and they want votes because they will want votes. I mean, half of them are affiliated with a political party. I won't mention any names for various reasons, but you can tell, bet your bottom dollar, as they say, that these are a certain class of people, and it's unnecessary.
Oh, of course, and most of the troublemakers, because they're not all troublemakers, but you will get troublemakers on both sides of the argument.
Well, they say it's guilty by association.
We know that. Yeah, we know that. It's just I really don't want to talk no more about this.
No, let's move on.
Ridiculous, isn't it?
Let's move on, guys. I mean, unless anybody wants to raise this subject further, but no, I mean, we have got guys a busy schedule. Lisa says Merlin and King Arthur. That was right. Okay, pagan magic. Yeah, interesting.
Oh yeah. Because I remember Lisa Terry discussing it with us at a local function that we had arranged for a community group.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it was brought up in discussion. That must be going back some years now, Lisa. Must be going back some years.
Just a few, Graham, isn't it? We know Lisa very well. We worked in politics, didn't we, all of us? And we did various things with local community groups and tried to get people together and do really fun things. And yeah, it was a good time, wasn't it, Graham? I would say.
Yeah, certainly was.
So, Graham, look, before we go on any further and we talk about, what we've got coming up in the show, I want to say before I believe the microphones were muted. So I'll repeat myself, although technically I'm not repeating myself because you never heard it.
Yeah, well, do it briefly.
Well, I'll try. But basically, tomorrow night is the Monday night show. Thanks again, guys, for coming on to the Sunday night show. Monday night show tomorrow, we do have a guest. We won't tell you who it is, but the person will know who it is. Yeah. And he will be on with us and he will be sharing some really good information with us all. So really proud and pleased to have that happen tomorrow. The show should start, Graham, show should start at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Now I'm going to say but I'm not going to say that, even though I've just said it, because quite frankly, there will be. But I hope there isn't. Because, we always hope there's going to be no problems. Do you know the funniest thing was, Graham? Just going back a little bit, we had the show ready and 7 o'clock, we were actually ready. And we were talking for about half an hour about how we were going to go about this. And it all went well, even at past. And then we went over to the main scene and I looked at the settings and I thought, something's not
right. Oh dear.
But you thought, no, it's all right. You just, you're going mad. And actually, I turned around again, and then I saw some people saying, no, I can't hear anything, can't hear anything. And I was like, oh no. So anyway, I was trying to tinker around with it, as you probably noticed, and well, failed miserably. But anyway, these things happen. Andrew says that makes sense. Yes, was still going to good. Still going on this. What? Sorry, my apologies. Yes, was good and still going on though. Yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Grem, so we better get cracking, right?
Because let's get cracking.
Before we lose any more followers, we want to get on with the show, don't we?
Okay.
Somewhat. And Grem, it's really good. Again, you've been able to be available, running around busy today. It's a day off for me, but he on the Ice Cream van, he's become available, which is good. He was nearly late, but actually he was on time. And he was always going to be on time. It's me that you've got to worry about. I can't seem to press the buttons at the right time, Graham. I think that's what it is. I don't know. Anyway, we won't go into that. We've been over that, guys. We've been over that.
Point one on the agenda.
Point one on the agenda, guys. Okay. Right. Okay, I'm going to flick over, guys, to point one on the agenda. And we start with... Right then, guys. So there you go. You saw that on the screen there. I would have told you about what was going on there on the screen, but unfortunately, Ben here, he hasn't put a microphone on the particular transition, so you wouldn't have heard me anyway. But Graham, doesn't matter, because I'm sure people know what's going on there. So basically, long or short of it is this. So Matt Hancock, he's come out, the health secretary, he's basically suggested that on the 4th of July, we can go out to the pubs again. They are going to open with, of course, some lockdown rules. I say lockdown rules, let's just say procedures upon going out. So, for example, face mask is one particular thing. We also feel that, or they feel particularly, that 1 metre rule has to be in place for those that do happen to go out. And obviously take good care and attention. It has also been said as well on the subject of this particular article that people might actually be having to order their drinks from an app within the pub. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. There has been a little bit of scrutiny around it at the moment, Graham. It's been
They've got an app. They've got an app already. Table service, isn't it?
Table service, yes, but I mean, if you picture the average pub, though, Graham, I mean, if you're talking to somebody like let's just say a place like the Eight Bells.
Oh, sorry, Ben. I'm thinking of Wetherspoons. Not every single pub is a Wetherspoons, is it?
No, true, but I mean, do the Wetherspoons do the drinks as well?
Yeah, table service.
So does that work? I mean, it must work, mustn't it? I mean, actually, maybe that is a good thing. I mean, as long as all pubs can keep up with that, but can you imagine how busy it can get, especially if we've got all these people going out, right? Because when the lockdown relieves and people realise on the 4th of July they can go out to the pubs, there's going to be a lot of people out. I'm pretty sure.
The thing is, will the internet cope?
Exactly. Well, that's it, Graham. Will the internet cope? And the other thing is, social distancing. I mean, people are going to go out. They're going to go out in numbers, aren't they? They're going to be wanting to see their people, their friends, their family. They're going to want to catch up on old times. So, you're looking at a busy pub. And if you think of that service, that table service, I mean, as much as it's great, it's very modern, it's very going forward into the future. But do you think it's going to work? That's the question, guys. What do you think, guys? What do you think, Graham? Do you think it will?
Well, we're not going to know until they actually go into it. So we will just have to hope that they've got the necessary safeguards in place.
Right. Well, yeah, that's it, Graham. That is probably the case, isn't it? Matt says, nice to see you, Matt. He says, speak up, Graham. He can hardly hear you, Graham.
Oh, I'm getting fed up with this microphone business.
Well, no, what's that say? Lisa, she says this is only for outside trading, no inside trade. Right. Okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense, Lisa. I mean, you're absolutely right. Because it is for only outside trade, and inside trade, I think it would be a bit tactical. I think it would be a bit difficult, because you've got all these people in the pub. There's going to be a lot of people out. We're not talking a small handful of people, on a Monday, Tuesday night. It's going to be raging with people. I can guarantee that. So they have got to obviously introduce that social distancing, and that's going to be tricky when people have had a few pints. It's going to be interesting to see how people cope with it, but I do think there's going to be a lot of people out. But I think they're going to be under pressure. A lot of people are going to be under pressure with these new rules, and certainly the system. I think it's going to be buckling a little bit. But let's hope they do well, and that's the main thing, isn't it? We do need to go out and have a drink, don't we, guys? We do need to get back out there and see our friends and family. Graham, would you agree with that? Do you think it's too soon, or do you think we're doing all right with that?
Yeah, it's sort of half and half, really.
Half and half.
Yeah, it's a difficult. I mean, it's a difficult decision for the government to make, really.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Because you can't like just you've either got to go the full hog or not at all.
Yeah, hog roast. Have you ever said, Graham? Have you ever had, when you talked about half and half, just switching the subject a little bit? Have you ever made a sandwich and had two fillings in each half? So, for example, maybe cheese sandwich, but maybe have peanut butter
on one side cheese and the other side jam.
Yeah, in one sandwich. I mean, actually, if you cut it, then it's just two separate sandwiches, isn't it? But I mean, some people, they don't do that. They don't cut it. They have a whole piece, a whole loaf, not a whole loaf, a whole slice, don't they? They don't cut down the middle or triangle or whichever way they would cut it. But do you do that? Do you mix up your stuff, Graham? I mean, is it the same as having cranberry sauce, on your parsnips? You know what I mean? Is it the same?
Well, it depends. I mean, you can put all different sauces and stuff on, like cheese and ham. You can use mustard. You can use sandwich bread. You can use whatever you want to put.
Sweet and sour.
Yeah. I mean, there's America, for example, peanut butter and jelly, which is basically jam and peanut butter.
Nothing like a bit of peanut butter, is there?
This is such an enlightening conversation. I'm so excited to be able to listen to it.
Well, yeah, no, it is exciting. But yeah, like I say, Graham, it is the Ben&Grem Show. So anything's possible. Lisa says, I used to work in a bar. It is scary. Yeah, I can imagine it, Lisa. I mean, do you know what? You've got those guys, haven't you? Not just guys, but girls as well. They're leaning over the bar and they want a drink. That's what they're interested in. They're shuffling around trying to get into the ideal location for that said eye contact. Mm-hmm. And it's just chaos. You know what I mean? And to think that, can you imagine, right? So, Graham, can you imagine, you're at a bar, right? You're working behind the bar and somebody comes up for a drink. But whilst that's happening, I'm assuming when they do this whole situation of bringing people back to the pubs, that you won't be able to order a drink from the bar. That's obviously the idea by this whole social distancing, right? So I'm assuming you can only order by the app. But, with that, it's going to get really complicated. I mean, are they going to have like a tannoy or something, a loudspeaker, and ask who's ordered what drink? Because it's not like we're going to wear name tags, is it? Barry, who's ordered, I need a Barry here. Do you know what I mean? Unless you put, so they're going to say, like, Barry for Guinness, and how are they going to do that? So Barry's going to put his hand up, I suppose. But
table numbers. Table numbers? Yeah, it's quite simple, really. Just a table number. Even if it's outside, just label each table with a letter or a number.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose.
Depending how many there is.
Yeah, but that's fine, and that works for the Weatherspoons because we know they've got table numbers. But most pubs haven't, have they? Graham?
Yes, most pubs do have tables.
Do they? No, not numbers though. Well, they'll have
Oh,
to put something out, won't they, on the tables? Like, I don't know, table 1, table 2, like maybe a little plaque or something. Or not a plaque, but do you know what I mean? Like a, what do you have? Like the receptionists have at hotels, a little bit of paper on it, and the plastic bit.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like at a wedding, like a dinner table. Graham, Lisa says half and half Cornish pasties. Graham, do they even exist? I think they do exist, don't they, Lisa? Graham, I think
Half
they do.
and half.
Half and half. Well, is that like maybe Go Barry? Go Barry. Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. Barry. Yeah, I remember Barry. We spoke about him earlier, didn't we? Andrew says he'll be fine. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you say you'll be fine. Andrew, are you letting on something here? Are you somebody that works behind a bar, or are you somebody that will feel it'll be fine because maybe you won't use the service, or you'll be fine because you're au fait with technology? Because that's what it comes down to. It might be, isn't it, Graham? It might be just because, like, you're not very good with the technology. Not everybody is. We're being forced, aren't we, in a way, to learn how to do these things by modern technology. It's not always people's first choice, is it? Half meat and half pudding, yummy. Yes, half meat and half pudding. That's interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, Lisa. If you can throw a link my way somewhere, I wouldn't mind trying that. Sticky toffee pudding Cornish pasty. What about that, Graham? That sounds good, doesn't it?
Gorgeous. Just out of this world. Sticky toffee pudding.
Yeah. Thank you.
Lovely.
Couldn't agree more, Graham.
Nice. Oh my gosh, it's got. I just love the taste of it and the buzz it gives you.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, thanks for that. Let's have a round of applause, shall we?
Hey.
Yeah, we need a pasty.
That sounds like the same bunch of people that was applauding me earlier. Exactly the same.
No, they left ages ago, Graham.
Have you got a recording of people making that sound?
Anyway.
Okay, look, tell them to put a cork in it and move on to topic 2 if we can.
Topic 2. I was just going to suggest that, Graham, and I'm glad you're here because if you hadn't said it, we might not have been finishing today. But we don't want to finish because we're enjoying ourselves too much, Graham, aren't we? All right, topic number 2. Now, this is an interesting one. Now, this is something that's been going on in another country, and we're quite fortunate in the UK, and many countries, maybe the Western world, are fortunate to be able to have the access to alcohol. And when I say alcohol, I mean readily available, such as your gins and your beers, your lagers, whatever. You can go to the shop, you can buy it, not a problem. You can take it home, you can drink it, and the rest is history. But in certain countries, they're not so fortunate. In certain countries, they don't have the ability to be able to go and buy their drink from the off license or from their local Tesco's. So the point I'm getting at is this. And so whilst we know at the moment that we have a lot of news in the UK about pretty much UK stuff, we get Sky News, might report on the odd international piece of news, but marginally it's really what's going on around us. It's very selective news. But we've got a little bit of international news, and I thought it was really interesting. I thought people would be interested in wanting to see this stuff. So I'm going to share this other link over to you, and I want you to have a quick read of it, and we'll have a discussion about it. It's quite interesting. So yeah, take a look at this. Well then, so there you have it. So this is a piece that's talking about the Middle East and the accessibility to alcohol. And what we do know is you see it from a lot of the American films when they do what we call in the outback, not the outback, but in the middle of nowhere, in the woods and so on, they do moonshine. And moonshine, if you don't create it correctly, can be extremely dangerous. And you might have seen in the article there's a bit about methanol, and now methanol is an extremely toxic substance, and of course extremely flammable and
Yeah.
poisonous. And if you have too much methanol, it kind of acts like an acid. It can do some real damage. I don't think it takes that much either to kill you. It's extremely dangerous, but you have to be careful. I know a little bit about this, Graham, and when you abstract or distill alcohol, what you're actually distilling is ethanol, and naturally, when you distill, it's the fumes that are coming off that vaporizes and turns into a liquid. Now that liquid is ethanol, so it comes out very strong, very strong. I mean, you're talking can be up to 100% alcohol, but usually speaking, it comes around about sort of 70 to 80% alcohol. And then, of course, it can be added to other things. Now, there is a thing that is known about distilling, that when you distill for alcohol, I believe it's the first 10 milliliters that comes off is dangerous. So, for example, if you're distilling, say, a 12-liter batch, you've got 10 milliliters of that batch is completely dangerous and you must get rid of it. And then after about 30 mil, it's safe to drink. So you dispose, let's say for argument's sake, you get rid of 30 mil just to be on the safe side, and the rest of it's good. Then you can add things into it to create an alcohol, but that takes obviously some time. Distilling, it's not a quick process, and of course that's why when you see the programs, American gangs and so on, they do it out in the woods and they do it where they can't be found. So there's plenty of time on their side. They have the means to do it. But in certain countries that are sort of up and coming, developing third world countries, they are not so readily available to alcohol. So the point here is, Graham, is that you've got these groups and they're getting hold of alcohol, moonshine, to what we know it as, and it's dangerous. It's not regulated. It's not sold, correctly, and of course it's causing deaths. And so there is an issue around the lifestyle of these particular countries in the Middle East, and so that because they haven't got, like you saw in the article, some houses don't even have toilets. So you can imagine the sanitary is not very good, and with that, obviously, the alcohol is not very good, and so people are losing their lives, and they are actually quite depressed. You know what I mean? People are very low, and they're sort of, resorting to alcohol, and obviously they're not drinking necessarily the safest stuff, Graham. It's quite sad. So this is the stuff that people don't necessarily know. This is news that doesn't always get reported, in our mainstream news, mainstream media.
It's not classed as important enough, is it? As you just said.
Well, yeah, I guess that could be one of the reasons why they don't report it. But Graham, it is a real situation, isn't it? That we should be aware of. There should be no reason for why people are drinking moonshine these days. I mean, if you know what you're doing, fine. But it is illegal to create moonshine, and even in this country, Graham, there's laws in which you can't create it because it's creating neat alcohol. But there's a little bit of information, actually, guys, for you, and some of you may already know this. It's a little bit interesting, I find, is that when you create moonshine, so you can legally ferment. You can use fermentation in this country. So, for example, you can get sugar and yeast, and you can get a flavored drink of some form, as long as it's still, you can add it all together. So you can put some sugar, say, I don't know, a kilo of sugar, and you can put a couple of teaspoonfuls of yeast in, and you can leave it for 2 weeks, and it will keep bubbling away. Most of which do these things in what we call demijohns or carboys, depending on the sort. And then they give it a couple of weeks to a month, and then basically you've got alcohol, and it usually ranges from between sort of 10 to 20%. On fermentation, natural fermentation. And then, of course, you would use that in a still. Now, you could just do alcohol out of water, provided you've got sugar and yeast. And if you were, if I'm honest, trying to make neat or pure alcohol, you would do it from water, or you would do it from potatoes. So anyhow, because it's the starch as well that also creates the yeast to activate and also to be eaten by the yeast. So anyway, long or short of it is that you would then still it, and then of course you would get your percentage, and it could be up to 80% volume. It could be a little bit higher or a little bit lower. But actually, if you do it properly, then actually you can get in the region of say 90 to 95% alcohol proof, which is extremely dangerous to drink. You could actually quite easily get alcohol poisoning, Graham. And so with that, the interesting part comes now, guys. So you've got say 95% alcohol, ethanol, just ethanol. You put that in the car and it will work, because at 95% it will mix with the fuel. Anything around that or anything below or higher than that will act like milk and oil, or water and oil. It won't mix. But the point is, you ask yourself, well, why don't we use that then? Why don't we use ethanol for fuel? Well, we could use ethanol for fuel. In fact, we do in certain areas of fuel anyway, don't we? There is ethanol in fuel, but very small quantities of. But the point is ethanol on its own would be like rocket fuel. It would burn extremely quickly, so it wouldn't last. You wouldn't be able to fill your car up with ethanol and drive to Folkestone or to Kent, I don't know, somewhere in Kent. It would just burn off really very quickly. It'd be very, very useful all the while it's burning off, but it would be no good for a long distance or any distance for that matter. So that's why we don't use it. But I just thought it was a really interesting thing. I was told about this once by a shop owner who sold some home brew, which is called Easy Homebrew. In fact, some might already know the place. I don't think they continue to operate anymore, but they used to operate, I believe, in Folkestone. Really interesting people there, and they sell legal aspects of fermentation and alcohol. So, like you do your own kits, make your own wine and stuff like that. So it's just one of those things. It's really interesting. And so, yeah, it's a sad thing that these people in certain maybe undeveloped countries are suffering in such a way of something we take for granted, of the enjoyable liquid. Sad to know. Lisa says she went to a party. Yeah. Lisa. Yeah, she's right. She says about a party, about Westerners, famous for drink, violence, and accidents, overboard in particular. Yeah, sorry, Lisa, I made our work of that. Yeah, absolutely, we are. I mean, we are a drinking culture-based nation, aren't we? We do like a drink, us Brits, and it comes about the football fans, doesn't it? The football hooliganism. They get a few drinks down them and they get a bit excited, and that's something that we've known. We knew it when some of us Brits, we went to places like Spain, wasn't it, in the World Cup? I think it was Spain, wasn't it? We went to Spain. I think I'm sure it was Spain we went to, and there was a little bit of violence, and it was just. Yeah, I mean, but then we're all human and we all do it, I suppose. When you had too much to drink and you're with a crowd, you can get a bit silly, And so, yeah, you have to sort of, when they say be drink aware, but we are well known as drinkers in Britain. And, well, we do enjoy it, Graham, don't we? We do enjoy it. Lee Turner says, hi, guys. What an evening being on the phone, he says. He says, with a friend who decided to register himself into a mental hospital. Wow. Interesting. Sad. That's not good, Graham. That's not good, is it?
It's interesting, sad, and a topic I think we might be able to touch up on a future episode. Might concentrate on mental health.
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Lee. That's not your everyday story, is it? That's sad. I hope the individual in question is doing well, and obviously I've got all the support in the world. Imagine they would have with you, because we know you, Lee, and you're a good guy, and yeah, sorry to hear the news. So I hope things do improve for you. Graham, do we move to the next topic?
Yes, please.
Yeah?
Because time's catching up with us. Time is catching up.
Certainly is.
Tick, tock, tick.
Right. Well, the next thing is a coronavirus update, guys. Now, if those of you have been working today, some of you may, some of you may not. Graham, I know you've been working today. We are fortunate enough to be able to bring you a coronavirus update upon some current statistics. I always struggle with that word. And that, of course, is of what was spoken of this morning in the, I believe, coronavirus meeting or briefing. Of course, that would have changed if you're given the hours between then and now. So, of course, that will be slightly different. The numbers will be maybe higher or lower. Well, it won't be lower, will it? Of course, but it'll be higher probably, sadly. There'll be a slight difference. And so with that, let's just say, have a look at this and see what you think, guys. Yes, so it is a bit annoying, Lee. He says it's a bit annoying that people testing is unavailable. Yeah, I understand that totally. It is annoying. He also says, Lee says, "Hi guys, what is this? A toilet break too?" Ah, right. Yeah, it was a while, wasn't it? Sorry guys. I hope you're there. I hope you're back. But obviously it was information, and of course we didn't want to rush it. But what you did see there on your screens, I will just quickly go over. So you had a number of tests. It was 175,000 tests completed daily. So, okay. 1,221 positive cases and 43 deaths, Graham. That's pretty serious still, isn't it?
The death total number's gone down quite dramatically. Compared to when it, from the start, when it was around about 950, 960-ish.
Yeah.
So it's gone down a tremendous amount. I just hope that we don't get a peak.
Well, what's quite staggering is the 7,890,000 number of tests, but 304,331 positive. Obviously, the deaths of that is sadly is the 42,632 deaths. Now, of course, as I said earlier, that may well have changed. There could have been a situation where, of course, obviously being that was an update this morning, I hope it hasn't changed too drastically for all sake, but it could have gone up. Obviously, it wouldn't have gone down because that's what was already there to see then. So it may have increased. But what we do know, given that particular update, Graham, isn't it, that we are now starting to ease back into normality again. We do know that we've got a big piece on this in a moment where Boris has suggested that we're going to limit the lockdown from 2 meters down to a meter. So it's going to slightly lapse. But of course, again, I think that's down to...
Is that in certain situations, certain areas? If it's outside, if you're walking in a high street sort of thing, or in a park. But if you're in a shop, if you're in an enclosed place, then will they be keeping the 2 meters? Well, I will be. I don't know about anyone else, but if I'm in Tesco's or any supermarket, but it's very difficult to do it in Aldi's, I won't be doing a 1 meter in a supermarket.
No. Well, no. I mean, of course, I think it comes down to, doesn't it, a perception of common sense, doesn't it? I mean, of course, that will be, I think our government, I mean, I don't know, I was talking to somebody recently about this, and they were saying about this particular government in question, Boris Johnson. He's not somebody in particular that is somebody who is likely to tell people how to live their lives. He hopes, I think, by his politics that he would use some amount of initiative and self-common sense. He's not a controlling factor or authoritarian as such. He's sort of somebody that says, look, this is a situation, we all know about it, but, just use your mind. This is what we advise, but, just take precautions and use your initiative. And I think quite clearly, as much as we might be going down to a 1 meter rule, like I say, Graham, I don't know whether it's actually to do with all areas of our daily lives. It might just be maybe public transport, but I don't know. I mean, but ultimately, I think the suggestion you could say behind all this is that we are starting to now ease the lockdown. But I would still think, sadly, that there is still a situation where, whether it's the second peak or not, some countries are still talking about extending a lockdown. Australia, I'll give you an example. Australia recently are actually in debate now whether to talk about bringing back a lockdown. They've had a lockdown similarly to us, but they're talking about another lockdown because they have peaked. And we've also known the other week we had Brazil, another country, a continent that, of course, again, is suffering with coronavirus, and, of course, large numbers of. It has seemed to have died off slightly somewhat in Europe, although there are still cases, yet maybe not quite so severe as the likes of Australia and Brazil. But ultimately, it's not gone away. And so like most companies are telling us, look, we must be mindful about this. We must go into work. We must take precautions. Must understand the social distancing. We must, remember to wear the correct PPE at all times. And of course, with that, it makes you realise that this isn't away. It hasn't gone away. It's a silent killer, as we know, Graham. It's a situation that we can't ignore, even now. So I still think, even with people going out to places like pubs on the 4th of July, when that time becomes available, I don't think people will be going out there with a completely clear mind. I think people will still be abundantly aware of the dangers, and of course will do their very best to socially distance. Again, I still feel that, when people have a bit to drink, obviously people get a bit leery, maybe people will start falling into bad habits. I think that's naturally going to happen. I think there's no way you can stop that. And that will be sort of bringing us really onto, Graham, whether we will see the likes of nightclubs opening, and will they be open as well? I mean, I believe it's nightclubs and pubs. Saying that, we haven't got any around here, Graham, have we?
No, the only nightclub we had was only opening on special occasions, and then someone decided to burn it down.
Yeah.
That's it. No nightclubs for us oldies.
Yeah, Lee says even Germany have noticed, actually. So there we talk about Europe, we say about the continents such as like Australia or Brazil, and actually we found out that we understand that Germany are recording a spike in cases. So
so therefore it's quite worrying, isn't it? That I believe is it from the end of this month that people can now fly to Spain?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
That's one of our topics, isn't it? Due to come up.
It is indeed. It is, and well, on the subject of coronavirus, we will go to the next point, Graham, because it does kind of follow on from our points here. Okay. Just check out this next clip. Right then, so as you see there, Professor Matteo Bassetti, he's an Italian professor who has suggested, Graham, that the coronavirus is changing in severity. So, of course, what we do understand to know from the point of the Italians is that what would once kill vulnerable people or people in general with coronavirus is not killing people as much. So it is weakening off, or at least it is certainly for the likes of those in Italy. So that's an interesting statistic. And again, that may not be such readily available for those who watch the news. I mean, it may have come up today, Graham, it may not have done. But the point is it's news that maybe not many people are familiar with. But it's interesting.
Do you think it's got something to do with the immune system, how our bodies are, creating the necessary antibodies to fight the virus, because it's a new virus?
Exactly. It could be, Graham. And like I say, we are racking up numbers now, aren't we, for those that have contracted the virus, and not only that, of maybe even those that have recovered from the virus. So I suppose there is some sort of maybe truth in the fact of herd immunity, even if there was thought that they wouldn't be at the beginning. I think always herd immunity probably did have a part in all this, but I think given the suggestion of going out and producing a herd immunity position was always risky, given potentially how many lives could have been lost. I think there was always a risk by that, but I think that has to be a factor. I think, yes, I agree that there may be something to do with that. But with coronavirus, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Italy had it very, very bad, didn't they? And now they're starting to see some positive signs. But whilst that's the case, other areas of the world are equally suffering quite heavily. So once when we thought Italy was probably one of the worst nations to be suffering from coronavirus, it's now moving on elsewhere. So it is really literally covering the globe, you know, and that's why I think it's fair to say that I think we should be more lenient with the likes of the government on the basis of coronavirus, given the fact that actually it is a national pandemic and international pandemic, and we're all struggling with this, you know, every country, every leader. So I don't think it's fair that the particular government of the Conservatives in particular should be getting such close scrutiny, because ultimately we're all learning. It's something that we could never anticipate and never appreciate until it happened. But we are where we are, Graham, aren't we?
Exactly, and the last thing we need is a group of individuals,
yeah,
running a ruck as such, screaming about things.
Well, it's not good to scream, is it? Never.
No.
There's no point in screaming at anyone for anything.
When we're in a height of pandemic, we don't need it. We don't need the risk. We don't need we don't need another we don't need a second peak.
No, I agree. Lee says seems feasible. It's similar to the way the flu progresses. So the people would build an underlining immune to it, and then maybe there's some logical reasoning. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I was just reading off that screen. I've got a very, very bad teleprompter, guys, as you notice. Yeah, that's true. Lisa says, British scientists have found medication to help the body's antibody to fight the virus. That's interesting, Lisa. There has been speaking or talk of a potential cure or virus.
Well, it's just something to aid the recovery, and I think it's effective in about a third.
Yeah.
Of people.
I think you could be right, Graham.
I think that works out about about one person out of 10.
Yes.
Something like that.
But it's certainly
it's a start, and it's a very, very old British drug. Is it Bethanol or something? Can't remember the name of it. Someone Google it for us and put it up on the feed.
Well, it's definitely not ethanol, Graham.
No.
It might make you feel better for a little while.
No, it starts with a letter B. It's not. I think it's a benzyme, part of the benzyme family of medications.
Yes.
If you want to say family.
I'm with you. Benzamine.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a very, very old drug, and it costs us pounds to make, and everywhere else in the world it's pennies or cents.
Lisa says it's certainly light at the end of the tunnel. No, it is absolutely, Lisa. It is, and
it's a start, and it's something that they can work on and maybe adjust to make it more effective.
Indeed. Right, that brings us on to our next topic, Graham. Let's go.
What is this, topic 4?
Yeah. No, 5.
Out of 11.
Relief for Brits as hairdressers finally get the green light to reopen on July the 4th. Right then, 4th of July. That's another date in the diary, isn't it? For other reasons. Not only do we know that pubs and clubs are going to start to open, but also hairdressers. Now, I've got a little story for you, Graham, and of course, Lisa says, maybe it's, she says here, Kevin, she says, can stop looking like a caveman. Well, actually, Kevin, you're not the only one, mate, and I'm sure many of us can agree that, like what's going on here, it's long. Now, but I don't have an excuse. I'm fortunate enough And some will also be fortunate enough to have somebody in the house who is pretty good with the scissors or the clippers. But it's kind of given me an excuse to try and see what length I can get this to go. I mean, I've never grown my hair, ever. You know, like my beard. I never had a beard, Grem. And I thought, you know
please,
what?
Please don't grow your hair.
I just thought I'd give it a go. I've always had short hair. But, you know, it was quite a funny story. I'll give you a little story. I was at work the other evening, and I what did I do? I straightened it, guys. I straightened my hair because I thought, you know what? I'm going to get it a bit like, you know, straight, you know, see where it goes. But the thing was, it became extremely fluffy. Well, everybody knows when you straighten your hair, it can be very fluffy, especially if you've just washed it. And my hair stuck up. It was really, I can't explain it. But I got ribbed about it quite a bit. And I thought it was only genuinely fair to do so, you know, by being, you know, it looked like a right state. But I thought, no, it's fine. It's locked down, innit? So I felt I had a reason to get away with it. But anyway, I put some gel on it and it flattened down a little bit. And right now it's a little bit flatter than it was. But there's a lot of hair in there. You wouldn't know it. You would not know it, Grem. There's a lot of hair in there. You're looking good, though, Grem.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Lisa says,
thanks a lot.
Jedward. Yeah, it was a bit, Lisa. It was a bit like Jedward. I did feel a bit sort of Jedward-like. In fact, I remember saying to one guy in particular that, I don't know if you know the footballer, but there's a guy called Kevin De Bruyne. Now, I know probably Kevin, and there's some football fans here, I'm sure, would know who I'm talking about. Now, he used to have a hair that was quite upright. And I think I was just doing myself a bit of extra justice because, well, Kevin De Bruyne is a good-looking fellow, isn't he? And there's me, you know, so I couldn't quite possibly pull it off. But I just thought I'd make myself feel a little bit better because it was diabolical. Grem, you don't ever seem to have long hair, though, do you? You seem to, every time I see you, Grem, you look like you've got, you know, a permanently short haircut. You're a tidy man, really. I mean, you've got a lot to look up to when you look up to Grem. He's certainly an inspiration to us all, Grem, aren't you?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Thank you for those kind words from my co-host.
I'm glad you appreciate. I think you need to. Lee says, my wife compared me to somebody she would usually drop coins in a hat for on the street. Oh dear. Yeah, well, I know where you're going, Lee. But no, but you look good, Lee. You look good too. I've seen you, haven't we? We've seen Lee. He's doing all right.
Yep, he's fine.
Yeah. Some people age and grow well, don't they? Some people grow horrendously and some people just grow well. Some people can grow a beard and it just looks perfect, and others it just looks scraggly. Now, it's weird, isn't it, how the bodies react so differently depending on the person that you are. Lisa says, sorry, guys, I'm off. She says, but have shared and will continue to support you. Thank you, Lisa. Well, thank you. And you know something? If it hadn't been for all the problems we had, you probably would have seen us finish by now. And that goes for everybody else in the stream. You know, we were actually doing really well to start with, but we had no audio. But no, Lisa, honestly, it's a great pleasure to have you back. And thank you for joining us on the Sunday night. Grem, we're both appreciative, aren't we?
We are.
That does bring us now to our next point, Grem, before we waffle.
All right, good.
Many folks out there, as you know, Grem, that just haven't had anything to eat yet. So we've got to press on.
Yeah. We will speed it up a bit, won't we, Ben?
Well, we'll try.
Well, no, we will do. Right. Everybody.
Okay. Next subject, guys. We're going to talk about flights. Right then, as you see, guys, 21st, today, Sunday, we have found that Ryanair are likely to be bringing back some of the flights, getting back to a said normal. Other airline carriers will be looking to bring back their, as you saw on the article, flights to be available to the public within the July period, which is really looking good and positive for those that want to get away on holiday. So what we know now, Graham, is that we're now starting to see flights taken off, particularly from the UK.
Yes, it's a bit of a concern, especially with Germany, as we was mentioning earlier, noticing and commenting on a peak, possible peak start of.
Yeah.
So it's a concern that the government are going to open the possibility of flights to Spain. I really do not understand why anyone would want to even take the chance. I really don't. Holiday in this country, go to the Sun House or something, or, stand up solarium, get an all over tan, strip your clothes off, walk in there, put the goggles on, in you go, get a tan. 3 minutes, it's equivalent to about an hour, isn't it? Or something. Yeah, slap a bit of oil on yourself and there you go. Try one of the stand up solariums.
Graham.
Yes.
What's an air bridge?
An air bridge?
Yeah.
Certain flights allowed to happen. Certain flights to certain destinations.
There you go, Lee. So air bridge, I suppose it's, okay, that makes sense. Well, yeah, because Lee asked, what's an air bridge? I mean, actually, I was just thinking that myself. Well, there you go. Graham, well done. Thank you. Thanks for that. Good job we got Graham here. See, this is why you need a host like Graham. Co-host.
Well, I don't know lots of things, but I know that. So
he knows enough.
Got a brain cell up there somewhere.
Yeah, you got loads, mate. You're doing well.
Lee
says, Graham, oh, that's interesting. Graham, Lee says,
it's not about volume or mics or anything, is it? Because I'm going to put my head through the screen.
No. Well, the guys are saying that you're coming through slightly quietly, but you are hearable.
Oh, okay.
Graham, Lee says, it's a bit like when he was at building site and as a kid, and he was sent to the shops for some skyhooks. Yeah, that's a classic. Do you remember that? A long stand. That's another one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had that one once. Left-handed screwdriver. That's a good one too.
How did that go then?
Well, technically that does go, doesn't it? Because if you're left-handed, you can use it in your left hand if you want to, because there's no rule about how you use a screwdriver. So actually, there's no such thing as a left-handed screwdriver. It's not called a left-handed screwdriver. It's just called a screwdriver, isn't it? But it can be used in the left hand. It can be used in the right hand. The only thing is, though, it would be awkward on the left hand because you would have to go the opposite way to go the way you want to go, right? Because, anti-clockwise and clockwise is different on the left hand as it would be on the right hand. I suppose that's the only difference, Graham, isn't it? I'm looking at you, Graham, because I'm hoping you can help me out with this, because I'm starting to work out now whether actually I'm talking sense here. I think I am. So the left hand and the right hand would be different, wouldn't it? Which way you turn it, of course. Anyway. A long wait. Yes, a long wait. Yeah, I remember that. I was working on the ferries once, and P&O, and there was a guy that sent somebody down. I say somebody, and it wasn't me. It wasn't. Was it me? No, I sent somebody down actually. It was a joke that was supposed to be played on me, but it backfired. So I tried to play it on somebody else, and it kind of succeeded. But I thought I was going to get told off because it wasn't really my place to do it. If you know what I mean. It kind of backfired on me. But basically, one of the guys who was a pot washer, and on the P&O ferries, for those of you that know, that P&O ferries, when you have a pot washer or a kitchen porter, they go down to the stores and they pick up or collect, should I say, the food, the frozen food from the frozen chillers and freezers for the crew. So they go down and pick them up in these big trolleys, a bit like what you get in Tesco's, those big trolleys that they cart everything on. And so this one particular time, this one particular guy, he was sent down by me to set a number of boxes aside that were of the leg of liver. Now, leg of liver there's no such thing, but of course he was looking for liver. And of course that made sense, because I think in that situation, I would have done that. There's no such thing as leg of liver. Oh, there's liver there. I'll put that in there instead. I probably would have done that. So he was kind of right in a way. Maybe the joke backfired on me, but there was no such thing as leg of liver. One guy that did actually get me, he sent me down for essence of mushroom. And I remember phoning up, and they all started laughing, and I realised that wasn't. And I was only young, bear in mind, I think. But anyway, yeah. So I had the leg of liver, and I was played on the essence of mushroom. So there you go. Yeah, it does happen. We all go through it. I remember, Graham, there was this initiation that I had when I first started in work. There was this factory I worked in. It was a window factory, and so I walk in the window factory, and there's this machine called a hot melt machine. And basically, this hot melt machine had an issue with the wiring. So there was a lot of static power within it. Like, so if you touch certain parts of it, the metal would give you a static shock, and it was quite brutal. And I remember the guy saying, "Touch that." So I touched it. You know, like a very sharp shock it was, and it made you jump. Or at least it made me feel like I jumped, but I didn't jump. I was actually, it felt as if I raised within my boots. You know, I just sort of like this, and it was the initiation. But I don't think you could have got away with anything like that today, obviously, for health and safety reasons. There's no way that machine would have been operating in such a way that it was back then now.
No.
You know, I first started work, it was early 2002, 2003. So how things change. No, actually, it might have been earlier than that, because I was actually at school. It was when I was working. You remember when Graham, they do still today, they do the work experience, don't they? And I was actually in work experience at the time, I believe. So actually, it was around about 2000, 2001 work experience. But yeah, there you go. Interesting stories. Graham, yes, Lee says you're hearable. You're hearable.
Lovely jubbly.
Yeah, so that's something.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Established that, because otherwise I might get interrupted in a minute.
Well, you don't want to get interrupted, Graham.
No.
It is time for our next topic, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we may have to take some of these topics over.
Right. So. Right then, so we've got another story here, lockdown, coronavirus, Spain. And Spain have had issues with riots and protests, similarly to what we've had over in the UK, and you could say globally, when you talk about the situation around the BLM, the Black Lives Matter. So, you know, we've got a situation with Spain, and basically Spanish are having a problem with around 6,000 cars. That's right, 6,000 cars. So basically Spain, because of the lockdown, and equally it's similar over here as it is in Spain, or was at least, they've been having people get in vehicles and actually attend a rally, if you like. And there was fear of actually that becoming out of control, because people were actually leaving their cars and social distancing wasn't being exercised. And it was all to do with the Spanish government, as far as the Spanish citizens were concerned. It was all to do with the Spanish government not doing enough around coronavirus. So we've sort of heard those kind of rumblings in the UK and other countries as well, I'm sure. And with that, they were worried, the Spanish authorities, with the amount of people involved, were worried that actually they could become a third world country, as far as the people are concerned, if they didn't take certain steps in correcting the situation around coronavirus and, of course, bringing themselves back to restarting the economy again and restarting life again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a bit scary, really, because if the Spanish are concerned about that, it goes to show just what sort of effect that the coronavirus has had, not just in our country, but across the rest of the world. And so the Spanish are really sort of like us. They're upset. They want to move on. They want to get back to a said normal. But you know what, guys?
I mean, there is a way around it, though, financially, in a way. I know all countries around the world are suffering, so they're having to borrow money. I don't understand why all these countries don't just club together with one agreement, and I mean that their own governments will control basically the people that are paying them anyway this money, and half the interest, or just have a third interest. I mean, you can't expect to just wipe the whole interest, because that's just, well, a bit cheeky, isn't it? It would be nice due to the situation, but sadly, they're a business at the end of the day. So, but they should be offering to cut the interest themselves anyway. And if they don't, all the governments around the world should be saying, yes, you are. All of us have agreed we are paying a third, and that's a third of the standard interest rate you would normally charge us. Otherwise, you're not. If all the countries do the same thing, otherwise you'll get what we give you, and that's it. Period.
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. I think you raise a point. And don't go to single screen. There's no sound, Lee. Yes, you're right. There is no sound, Lee, on single screen, Graham. So we will not be going down to single screen. Thanks, Lee. Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Graham. I agree. You know, it's tough, and obviously all governments are operating in different ways. People are actually acting out in different ways. But like I said earlier, I do believe that, you know, regardless of what country you're in and what authority you're under, you know, everybody was caught on the hop, really, when it comes to coronavirus. And it's all very well we can turn around and say, I suppose, you know, we could have done things differently, or we could have done things better. There was always an argument for that in any situation in life. But I think in reality that we were all unsure about the severity. And I think people, and there's still even some people today, do believe that there is a bit of hysteria with the coronavirus. I mean, I think a lot of people now do respect it quite well, and I believe that what we've had to go through has been a fairly genuine ordeal. But yeah, you always can get those individuals, Graham, that aren't they? You know, that want to feel that maybe things could have been done differently, or that, you know, it's you know, you're going to get that. Graham, it brings us on to our very next point, and it's about, as we discussed very briefly earlier, it's about Boris Johnson. And we've spoken briefly about the meter rule that he wants to bring in place, in force, as of now, I believe. Have a look. So we know that, you know, Boris Johnson has said that, you know, he believes that 1 metre distancing is suffice, or at least we'll be going to down that route. So that's interesting, Graham. And but the virus hasn't gone, and I agree that there is an element of worry in people that, you know, because there isn't a vaccine yet, as much as we're becoming closer and closer to that point of a vaccine, we're not there yet. And so, is it right to suggest that this is an option that we should be looking at? And again, I think, Graham, you might be able to pick up on this, but Graham, do you think, because quite honestly, it seems to me that, you know, people will still use their own initiative on this?
Yes, it's problem solving at the end of the day, and everyone's got common sense, different styles of it.
Yeah.
But it is obvious that you can't and you should not get too close to people. And you know, just a bit more than arm's length. It's what people need to do and keep doing.
Yeah,
You know, that's
indeed.
what I won't. I don't think. I don't think I ever got close to people like that anyway. Unless back in the day when we used to go to nightclubs, but
Yeah.
you know, it's different. But those sort of atmospheres would have to. Well, you know, how do you social distance in a nightclub? You just
Exactly. But you can't. You can't.
no.
You're busy.
Yes.
But
I mean, the thing is, keep your hygiene up all the time. Wear clean clothing. You know, wash your hands thoroughly. Everything that you do. If you
Graham,
wash, you know, you just keep it up.
but there was talk, wasn't there, about the what were you talking about? Graham, yeah, there was talk about that, wasn't there? And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, about keeping up hygiene. It's important.
That's the main. The hygiene issue is the main cause of this a pandemic passing on. It's mainly caused where someone has got bad hygiene to do with hand washing, for
Low immune
example,
system.
and they hold a handle to open the shop door, or you know, or they flush the toilet, they don't wash their hands, and then they use the handle to get out of the cubicle, or you know, and etc.
Yeah,
out of the door. That's what it's down to. It's just basic hygiene. Keep it up.
Yeah. It is basic hygiene, and there was talk actually in the media about how, or in the papers, if you like, over the course of the last month or so, in that clubs in particular may not ever open again because of just the fact of social distancing. If we have to have that as an ongoing thing, because quite simply, as you know, Graham, you know, you cannot social distance in a club. It's just impossible.
No,
They're dancing, they're drunk, most of which. They're having a good time. They're not particularly aware of space, well, you know.
Well, this is why you just need to try and keep your hygiene up.
Yeah.
Before you leave home to go to a nightclub or a function somewhere, just make sure you have a thorough wash of your hands.
That's it. But Graham, I mean, you know, Lisa said earlier in the chat, actually, and I'll pick up on her point earlier. She said about she's getting to the age where she feels she won't be going to the nightclub. So, of course, for Lisa's point of view, she probably won't be going to nightclubs. She's a family lady now, so she.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like me, I would love to go to a nightclub. I still feel young. I still want to get down and like.
Of course, I mean, you know,
dance and that.
Clubs aren't designed for youngsters. They are. You know, they're adults as well. You know what I mean? For everybody. But of course,
there's all sort of clubs you can go to. Loads of different clubs. There's a lot of adult clubs that you can go to.
Well, we won't get into that, Graham. Oh, in fact, we can. It is 20
we can do. Yes, but we're coming to the end of our show anyway.
We are. Well, yes, we are. And Graham, that does bring me on to the next point. Holiday makers, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, we talk about flights becoming a possibility, but we're now going to show you a next clip of some information that's come through today. There we go. So you've seen that slide there. So basically we know that holiday makers in particular can be somewhat happy on the basis that we know that flights are now going to start moving within the next week or so. We will also find that hotels and B&Bs will also be available for those to be able to purchase, to stay in. And so that brings hope and life to those that want to get off to a beach or go off to another country particularly. So things are, I would say in the next couple of weeks, Graham, it's fair to say that things are really taking a turn for a change, to said normality. Again, I still feel though, guys, I don't know about you guys in the chat, but I still feel, Grem, I still feel that this is just far too fast. I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean,
I think a lot of this is down to pressure. It's down to pressure, and I feel it's more generational pressure. That and at the end of the day, the government is will worry about votes.
Yes, sure.
And it's an ideal opportunity for certain political parties to use the situation to better their chances.
Yeah.
For example, siding with specific discussions going on at the moment within the political arena in public. Certain political parties are siding as much as they can to try and get an upper hand.
Indeed. Indeed. Makes sense. Makes sense. And there's another issue around our food. And if I bring you to the next slide. Yeah, so as you saw there, we've got to help our local farmers. Our fresh produce is at a suffering point. We've got our industry, if you like, our farming industry, producing British grown food and veg, and it's going to waste. And it's a worry because, of course, when we talk about our economy, we talk about keeping our economy strong. I can confirm that it's been said that the FTSE 100 is actually coming up quite nicely. So there could be, although was once a said fear of a crash, economical crash, we might just be lucky enough to avoid it since we're now starting to go back to a said normality. But what we've got to start doing, guys, I think, as an opinion, you could say, is starting to buy, at least if you don't now, do now. From now onwards, we should be starting to buy.
There is a campaign that's been going, isn't it, for the past couple of months to buy British.
Yes.
But it hasn't been voiced a lot within the last few weeks due to the current situation, which is taking control at the moment in this country. And it's not the coronavirus. It's what's happened in London, what's happened in Manchester, what's happened in Edinburgh, what's happened in all parts of this country and around the world. Taking over at a time when we should be concentrating on protecting ourselves.
Indeed. And that's it, Graham. And you made that point. We need to be concentrating on looking after each other, and this is the thing, rather than taking to the streets and protesting, as much as, peaceful protests, as we know, are completely fair and genuine within democracies, particularly within the UK. As long as it's peaceful, it's okay. But actually, we should be putting more efforts and interest in towards looking after each other. I mean, ultimately, one thing was suggested by coronavirus, if you like, and the pandemic, was that people are now becoming more aware of one another and more caring. And then we feel that certain involvements with protests have let that down a little bit. But in respect to what you said, Graham, and you're absolutely right, we do need to be concentrating on buying our homegrown food resources because we are needing to protect our economy, and it's important that we do that. And our food is just as good as anybody else's, obviously. There's nothing wrong with our own food. So we really got to start training our minds into doing that, helping out our farmers and helping them protect their industries, because it's not just the farmers, it's the fisheries as well. And the same applies to them. And that was also in the article. We do need to protect our fisheries and our farmers. And put ourselves back on the map and build our country back up, you know, because it needs it. It needs it. Graham, have you got anything more to pick up on that?
No. Something's just come up though on the feed. It is the Telegraph paper, telegraph.co.uk.
Yeah.
Apparently they reckon 1 in 5 Britons think, now wait for this, and if this does not anger the silent majority, then what will? 1 in 5 Britons are saying that Winston Churchill's statue should be removed into a museum.
1 in 5.
1 in 5, apparently.
That's not a lot, though, is it?
It's not 1 in 10. It's not 1 in 10. It's not 1 in 15. It's not 1 in 20.
But I think, yeah, I agree with you, Graham. I think that is still a statistic worth mentioning, and I do think there is sad reality in the fact that even that 1 in 5. So you could say it's 2 in 10, which is still too many, because ultimately, what harm is a statue doing? And ultimately, it resembles something, and it, you know, resembles good and bad. It depends on which way you look at it. But this is the point I made earlier, Graham, wasn't it, about history? Now, history has to be respected, whether it be good or bad history, because it's what's defined us, is what we are today. And the only way we can change our futures is to be better people today. Going out marching is not going to improve how we live in the future. It's just going to make us look worse than what we did once before in the past. We're not improving ourselves by some of the antics that we're seeing in London and some of the antics that we're seeing up and down the country. In fact, we're going backwards, not forwards. So we've got to remind ourselves that actually by wanting to take away artifacts that actually have far more purpose and meaning than some of us individuals, we have no right. We have no right. No, it doesn't. I agree, Graham. It should not be in a museum. It should stay where it is. And in fact, for anybody that needs to know, there was a Scottish MP. Now, I haven't got the footage up, and it's just off the top of the cuff here, off the cuff. But there was a Scottish MP who was questioning Piers Morgan the other week, and he was talking about Winston Churchill. We had very many bad words about him, and you know, the perception of the youth, if you like, of today, even though he was an MP, so you would expect him to have a little bit more knowledge on the matter, was questioning Winston Churchill. You know, but what we've got to assume he realised, or at least maybe didn't want to realise, was that, you know, Winston Churchill put an end to World War II based on with alliances, of course, but he was the one that led our armies into war and protected the country from becoming overtaken, if you wish, by the Germans. But ultimately, as much as the Germans today are better people, and of course, back then there was a lot going on politically. Obviously, we know Hitler had a lot to do with it, and Germany was a lot different then than it is now. But back then, we could have been a very, very different place, but people fail to realise that. And Winston Churchill, as well, was actually somebody that sat on the left and equally on the right. He was a member of the Labour Party, as equally was a member of the Conservative Party. So he was a very open-minded gentleman. You know, yes, of course, all politicians do bad things. Can't please everybody. That's the way politics is. But I think a lot of what the left-wing side of politics are calling him and referring is absolutely outrageous. And you know, they don't realise just how lucky they are to be where they are today. If it wasn't for the likes of Churchill and the people that went before us, we wouldn't have what we have today. So they need to remember that. You know, and you know, we're too busy in the ball, but the man, but not the ball when it comes to things like this. You know what I mean? That's a political football analogy, but people are more interested in taking the man, but not going for the ball. Well, look, go for the ball, find the problem, find the solution, and then work on it rather than attacking every single body that supports a particular ideology simply because you don't agree with it. It doesn't make any sense. There has to be rhyme and reason by these things, but it doesn't seem to be the case, Graham, does it? Doesn't seem to be the case. There is one last thing, and I think it's an interesting one, because we've heard a lot about fake news in the media. We've heard it through the likes of the Donald Trump campaign, and not only in the campaign of Donald Trump, but also we heard it a lot within the UK referendum. And of course, fake news was branded on both sides, whether you're Leave or Remain. But of course, fake news was brought out to the attention of the journalists and the general public. And of course, there has been attempts, if you wish, to try to fix that problem of fake news, to try and make news real news. And there is a way that we can do it according to a certain part of the world. Now, I'm going to show you this next clip. And this next clip will actually explain, Grem, about a particular game, believe it or not. So I like the idea, I like the thinking behind this, because a game is something that people can engage with. And a game, because it can be engaged with by various different individuals, whether they're young or old, actually might captivate the attention of them for a moment at least. So they would then maybe engross themselves within it. Now, this particular game is called, it's not called fake news, but it's about fake news. And basically it gives you a set of scenarios, this particular game. And it kind of allows you to be thinking in different ways, not one particular way or another. So it kind of opens up your mind to take any particular situation and actually take an assertive view or vision on it. So I'll show you the clip, and I think it's really interesting. I think actually not only is it interesting, I think, but it could be used particularly in the likes of the UK British politics or American politics. Well, it can be used across the world if it was designed well enough to be effective. Let me just show you this, guys. So, guys, what do you think about that? Now, that's really interesting. Maybe that it become available to the likes of the Play Store or the Apple Store, you know, potentially. What about that, Graham? What did you think about that? Did you see that? It's about the app. I mean, of course, it's a new app that is working in particular in the East Africa area. The idea of the app is, as I say, it's like a role-playing sort of thing. It's a role model thing. You play as a character within this game, and basically you are not necessarily in your way particularly in line with that particular type of politics, but you are playing as a character and you're trying to unlock or solve puzzles, but you're doing so in such a way that will maneuver you into an answer to any particular situation. And I think that is good, I think, for a lot of people, particularly the youth of today, because of course it's another way to try and captivate their attention, but also try and allow them to understand on their own terms. I think, like all things, Graham, and you'll know yourself, when we're youngsters, we don't like being told anything. As much as we go to school and we learn, we can be fairly skeptical as children, and or shall we say, or completely on the other side of it, we can be quite believing, if you like, because somebody's stuff. And this is a way for people to be able to actually take a view of their own.
Yeah.
And unlock that freedom within the mind to be able to come up with an assertive decision, an informative decision of their own. And I think that's a really good step in the right direction, isn't it? An app that can be used politically to enable people to, you know, be able to think for themselves. Because I think a lot of
the necessary facts.
Absolutely, Graham. I think a lot of the culture we have in today's society is that we seem to run with the following identity politics, don't we? You know, you have a group of people say one thing, well, then you find that they say it because they're all saying it together. But actually, do they believe it? Well, I don't know. They sort of, it's what do they call it? It's consensus politics, if you like, or if it's, what is it? What's the word, Graham? It's like when you get a group of people and it's
consensus.
No, it's a word I'm trying to think of here, where you get a group of individuals, and it's like, you know, it's like take a group of people, yeah. So they're involved in a particular doing or thing, and it's because it's fun or because it's the done thing. It's favourable, so they kind of stick to it. You know what I mean? And that's my point. It's not identity politics, but there's a word I'm trying to get to, but I can't find it at the moment. But basically, it's a word basically that defines groups of individuals that go upon a favourable belief as opposed to a belief which they particularly believe in or otherwise wish to really understand.
A belief that is likely to cause difficulties for the other side, sort of thing.
Yeah, like popularity politics, like
populism.
Populism. That's the one I'm talking about, Graham. Sorry. Yes, that's exactly the word I was looking for. So populism. So you've got a lot of politics today, in particular, is very much driven around populism. It's like, you've got a group of left wing or right wing, and it's very populistic. Populism. But that's what I think we need to move away from. And I think this particular movement with this whole idea of an app, I think can actually then maybe be able to be a way in which we could then open up the minds of those individuals, regardless of politics.
Yeah, because they're not getting it, are they? Elsewhere, they're not getting it. But I don't. Those are people will say yes, they are being taught critical thinking at school, but I don't believe they are, because they wouldn't be running around like that. They are.
Yeah, I don't think there is maybe enough being done.
No, not at all.
But I think in order for this app to work, I think to pick up on a very, very important point, Graham, I think the only way that this app can particularly work effectively is if people who create the material for this said game,
yeah, exactly, yeah,
gives a very varied belief.
Well, it needs to be it needs to be led by someone that it can be non-political, a group of people. It cannot be either side. It has to be broad church. It has to give facts for and against. Otherwise, you won't have a app. The app will not be functioning as how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely, Graham. Lee says too many people see politics in the same light as profanities. Yes.
Right.
The clickbait is really annoying, Andrew says. Fake news sells, sadly. Yes, it does, Andrew. You're absolutely right. It does. And exactly what the media are playing at. It does. But, regardless of that point, Andrew, you're right. It does sell. But regardless of that point, I think most people, general folk, let's say, I think educated enough, I hope to believe, or at least I believe anyway, to believe that they can think for themselves. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I talk about these apps and things coming out, and I think it would help maybe a generation, maybe. But I do think people are a bit more clued up. I think they can see through it sometimes. But you're right, scandal, isn't it? It's anything to do with scandal, and it sells. It sells papers. Sadly, I don't believe there are many journalists in today's world, if you like, that are absolutely keen on the story. They're actually more keen on the scandal. And if they can find a bit of scandal, it sells. And
it sells, it sells. I mean, a happy-go-lucky story is not normally what you see.
It's not news, although there is plenty of it. And it's quite sad, really, because, you get people that may well be interested in politics, but choose not to be simply because it's so negative. But actually, there's a lot of positives within politics that people need to see. And it's down to the media that don't show it. Ultimately, if they balanced it a little bit, then politics wouldn't be as bad as people think it is, obviously. But I do think there is a time, I think, where you need a bit of fair politics. And sadly, the media are led in one way or another, depending on what particular source you watch. That's just the way it is, Graham, isn't it? We're never going to change that. We are never going to change that.
I don't think we will ever change it, mate. Well, no, we will change it. It will change, but slowly.
Well, that's the plan. That's the plan. And I think the only way you can do that, Graham, isn't it? I think the only way you can do that is to educate people differently. I say educate, I mean, try and unlock the mind in a way, to be able to, like I say, freely think, to be able to be allowed to have an opinion, and not just have an opinion, but to be able to express that opinion and to not be seen differently upon doing so. Everybody will think differently because we've all been brought up in such a way that certain things they believe in or don't believe in. That makes us human beings. That makes us normal. But what's not normal, and I think this is the problem we are facing in today's world, if you like, is a situation where you've got politicians that will say various different things, whether you believe in that particular politician or not, but they expect you to go along with it. And then when you don't, you're looked upon or frowned upon. But
if
then
it doesn't fit with the
narrative.
the narrative pushed by literally a minority political persuasion,
yes,
then we or others are in the wrong.
exactly.
So basically, with regards to the Black Lives Matter movement, because we disagree with certain aspects of it.
Yeah.
I think I don't disagree with the fact that they want to protest, bearing in mind the current situation. It's just not good to be having protests.
No.
So once things clear up, have your protests, silent protests, like what they were meant to be doing. Okay, so some people are causing havoc, which are just joining on and using the situation to feather their nest, or just to see who can scream and shout the loudest. But none of these people, except for one, has been questioned with regards to events at the centre path.
Yeah.
That's the only person who tried to burn the Union Jack flag. That person has been interviewed by the police. Now, if I had money, I would put a bet down now that nothing will happen about it.
Yeah, that's a shame. Yeah, Lee says, example, story about today about Boris. He has 6 children, a fiance and an ex-wife, and yet his personal life is considered to be the story. I don't understand how the personal life should play a part in whether he can do his job or not. Absolutely. Andrew says he's tried to share the Facebook page, but keeps saying, oops, something went wrong. Probably something to do with the Ben and Grem show, Grem, isn't it?
We'll have to work it out, but we're coming to the end shortly
We
anyway.
are coming to the end.
So,
But just absolutely to pick up on Graham, I just want to pick up on Lee's point there, because he's absolutely right. That is a problem, actually, and I think that's something the media need to work on, or not work on, but change, because it's not something they need to work on. They're fully aware of what they're doing. But you're right, it's identity politics or populist politics. It's like but everybody loves Boris, right? But they like Boris because of the way he is. But is it right for people to know about Boris in his personal life? The answer is no. But the media have a good way of trying to get at people through those means, because they realise that maybe they can't get them through political means, so they'll try and do it in other ways. And it's quite scandalous, really, that they're able to tap into one's personal life to get dirt on someone. And that's how low media will go. I know I won't speak of names, but I know a particular person in the media, I mention no names for legal reasons more than anything, who I knew went after somebody for various information, and because they couldn't get it, had led to some very dirty tactics. And the very person in question was doing things way out of the jurisdiction of media, way out of the jurisdiction of journalism. And I can't say much more than that, but let's just say legally they could have been locked up for it. But they put that particular person's life in jeopardy, or actually in misery. Not so much jeopardy, but it could have been if they had been affected with any particular mental illness, given what was going on, and quite possibly that could have been the case. So journalists, they're like Graham, they're like animals, really. They're there to make a living, of course, but they will, some of which, do anything to get a story, no matter how bad they have to go to get it. And that's why I feel it's sad about politics, because people see the politics that we see on TV is selective politics. It's not half of the politics that we need to be seeing. It's not the half of the information, sadly, that we need to be seeing. And it's very selective. And, you know, one thing I think is clear to say, Graham, is that there is so much news out there today that is very much isolated from us. And I think people might want to know about what's going on the other side of the world, because naturally it might have an impact on us in some way or another. But our news is so focused on the mundane, boring stuff that it is, and half of which people don't care about. How many people, guys, watch the BBC? I mean, they're so outdated. It's unbelievable. You know, it's kind of like having a show, Graham, isn't it? Having a show in the 60s. Nothing wrong with the 60s by and large. And they're still showing the same show today, but with new content. Nothing's changed. Nothing's evolved. That's the BBC. They are like the equivalent of a dinosaur of the modern day.
Yeah.
They don't seem to be able to move on. And that's not just in their way to broadcast, but in their ways of material. It's so polarized. And I think that's why a lot of people, Graham, are so disappointed with them. And I think that's why I think people need change with them, because ultimately the BBC are our main fundamental news outlet. But it has to change. It has to change. And we do hope it will, Graham, don't we?
We do.
We do. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Graham, it's been great again. Enjoyed ourselves. We do apologise again for a few issues earlier in the stream. Sound, of course, another issue which we absolutely thought we weren't going to have tonight, but unfortunately we did. I hope it wasn't too stressful for you guys, and appreciate you all hanging about in the stream and sticking around with us, because you have been fantastic. And you know, we've got people coming into the Ben&Grem Show page, loving every minute of it. Thank you so much, guys. We are so grateful, Graham, aren't we?
We are. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
It means an awful lot to us.
And don't go too far, Graham. Don't go too far, folks, because tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock, we will be live again for the Monday night show, Monday night guest show, and we'll have another great individual on board to help along with the show. Until then, Graham, what's the word we use? He says. Until then, stay safe. Thank you.